Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web development and design. In today's episode, we are going to talk about ultimate tools for indie hackers and bootstrappers, and specifically talk about a project called Superstarter, which I am really, really excited about. This episode is sponsored by daily.dev. This is a Chrome extension that every developer in my mind should have. So, what it does is you open up a new tab after you have the extension installed, and it will show you a curated list of tech related content, blog articles, and I guess they're mostly articles, but they could have like embedded videos and stuff in them. But that's kind of my easy way to keep up with like latest trends in tech. And it's one of my favorite things. So every time I open a tab, I usually kind of skim to see if there's anything that I want to read and any products that I want to check out, etc. So check out daily.dev, and thank you to daily.dev for sponsoring. So, Jonathan, I want to welcome you to the podcast. Really glad that we had to reschedule once, so I'm glad we got it figured out today. I've been really looking forward to this episode. I've been working a lot with SvelteKit and Supabase recently on the Discord bot and the website for the Learn, Build, Teach community that I run. So Supabase specifically is top of mind for me, and one of my goals, not anytime specifically, is to build out a product of my own at some point that I can just to kind of get into that entrepreneurial mindset. So anyway, lots of things that I'm super excited about or to talk about today. So welcome to the podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about who you are and what your background is?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. I'm first of all the creator of Superstarter, but I'm also a full stack developer from Germany. And I'm really excited to talk about this whole indie hacking topic because it's very young in my opinion, and there are some exciting tools coming up, and it's like serverless stuff, it's no code, low code stuff, and all this. And maybe we can even get some feedback from the listeners or viewers here in the comments. And yeah, excited to be here.
One of the things I didn't know, and I hadn't actually specifically looked into it, but you've already mentioned it, and I kind of want to get your take on it, is the balance of like you also have a full-time job as a developer, and then Superstarter, which we'll get into, is a side project. So maybe before that, what kind of got your interest into the idea of indie hacking and building your own products and being an entrepreneur and all those things?
I mean, for most people, including me, it's probably freedom of choice. You can do what you want, you can pick the tools you want, and for most, when they get started, it's just themselves, so they can decide on everything. A little bit of feedback involved from customers, of course. But yeah, I guess for me, it was just being able to do whatever I want and building the product the way I like to do.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's like one of my things with now being a full-time content creator is having 100% ownership over everything that I do, which comes with a lot of responsibility, right? But I get ownership over like when I work, what I work on, what I think priorities are, etc. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about with 2023 is having my first full year as a full-time content creator. So how, like, kind of maybe having that in your head of like, I'm a developer, I can build stuff, and I can build stuff hopefully to the end of like having complete control over not only what I build, but maybe do that full time in the future. But right now you're doing this on the side with a full-time job. So what's that dynamic like? Like a lot of people used to ask me that question of working full-time and doing content. How do you balance the two? How do you maintain like a healthy work-life balance, et cetera? But what's the balance like for you of like working full-time and then working on the side with Superstarter?
Yeah, so personally, I do most of the work. Like I have a fixed schedule for the mornings where I just spend like 1.5 to 2 hours working on the projects that are my fun and side projects. The main project currently being Superstarter, and then sometimes I spend the weekends on some things because they have a little bit more time. But that's actually what I'm trying to get away from this year. I just posted my goals today on Twitter where I said I want to spend more time with friends and family because I've been doing this for like 4 months now, and it can get very very hard, very challenging to work like 7 days a week.
Yep.
And you have to get some time off. And so I just said, this is going to be my priority, that I have this one side project, do that the best I can, and then take off some time on the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always been my number one priority, I think, with either looking at job opportunities and or working for myself, is making sure the work-life balance for me is what I want and expect it to be. Because my like worst fear working wise is not being able to take off work to go to like a family
Yeah.
event or a family reunion or something. And unfortunately, that's the reality for a lot of people, is you only get X number of days per year. And if you have more than that in events and weddings and that kind of stuff, like you just can't do it all, that's like my worst fear. So that's one of the things that does come with working on content full time, is I have complete control over my schedule. But also just lots of companies, lots of tech companies especially, have modern cultures that allow you to have that flexibility, because somebody that if you're taking care of in your personal time, you're going to be a better employee and be more effective in that sense, I think.
And you learn more, right?
Yeah,
you also
absolutely.
have like new topics that because I have this thing that I learn a lot of things in my free side projects or free time that I can then bring to my job and do a benefit there. And you just said that the focus on doing these small things, like small things is not the right word, but creating content gives you the free time to do it whenever you want.
Yep.
And that's the same for me with Superstarter, because I create I'll get to what it is later on, but I create the code, and then I don't have to do anything after that, because people just can buy it or get the code and then do whatever they want. I have some support to do with it, but I have no responsibility after that part.
Yeah. Well, do you want to transition a little bit into tech? So I'm wondering if, before we get into the tech behind Superstarter and what it is and why and that sort of stuff, were there any kind of different iterations of what your favorite tools were over the last 10 years? Does that make sense? Like any previous tools that you may have used 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago?
I think 10 years is like a century in web development. I mean, there's been so many new tools and already new tools coming up. And I just wrote in a tweet that I updated to Next.js and had a project that is just 1 year old and it's basically completely outdated because there were so many new features in the last year. The best thing about this is that the tools get more and more developer friendly. And this is what I recognize in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years, that the tools are becoming more and more developer friendly, and also let's call this solo founder friendly. So and that's what was the main driver behind this whole thing, is that you're actually now able to build whole SaaS applications using these tools, like these serverless platforms like Vercel and Netlify. You have Supabase or Firebase for databases, or storage or whatever, Auth0 for authentication, and so on and so on. And this actually enables you to build applications without having to have a team of hundreds of people, because you can just focus on what's important for your application and just outsource the rest to the services. And oftentimes they're actually free, so you can get SaaS started for free.
This has been one of my favorite topics, I guess, or just one of the things that I think is most impactful as a developer is, as a developer, you have the ability to build almost everything. Like if you think about anything new that comes out, there's obviously hardware stuff, but like there's always a software component, web app, web platform, mobile app, whatever. There's a software component to it. As a developer, you can see a problem and you can go out and build the solution, and you can potentially turn that into a business, which I think is, again, one of the most exciting things about being a developer. So yeah, do you want to introduce like specifically what is Superstarter? Why did you create it? And then what are the technologies that comes bundled with it?
Yeah, so there are actually two answers to that question, because the first is what it currently is, and the second is what I'm building it into.
Mm.
So currently it is a starter template for SaaS applications. Currently the focus is on Supabase and Next.js. So Supabase as the backend and Next.js as the front-end framework. And then we have some React libraries included, like Chakra UI. We have Tailwind CSS included. Also React Query for data fetching and so on, and some other tools. And the idea here is just what I mentioned, to save the time of building all the things for the basic application, like authentication, internationalization, the subscription setup with Stripe and so on, and rather let the developer focus on the core functionality of his application. So that's the answer to the first answer to the question. And the second one is I'm actually trying to transition this to a more generic framework for starters. So my plans for this year are to build a Next or Vue.js based variant of this starter template, and also a mobile starter template, so that you can actually build a mobile app with it. And then to also move this a little bit away from Supabase, not completely ignore Supabase, but actually make it a little bit more flexible, so that if you want, you can plug in another authentication provider or choose another database or write your own backend, so that you can, if you want, and that's what I get from as feedback from customers. Sometimes they want more abilities to do the code the way they want it. And the third thing is that I actually try to make it to create a entry-level community starter template, which will be available for free, so that only the more pro features are paid.
Very nice. So now the templates all together as they are paid.
Yes.
And then eventually we'll have like a community free version.
Yes, exactly.
Nice. I love that. And I think starting with an opinionated set of technologies makes sense, because one, you can't build everything at a time, and you can start with something that you're comfortable with and then go through that cycle of getting feedback and then figuring out what are the things that people want. And I've talked about this a lot, and I've been streaming about it. I've been working on stuff with Supabase, but I'm such a huge fan. And there's Supabase, there's Firebase, there's Appright as another similar one that is going through some really exciting stuff. I'll actually be creating content on them and starting in February over the next couple of months, which I'm excited about. But those types of platforms are the kind of the epitome of what you talked about earlier, of like, you don't need to write all that code yourself. Like, I just love having authentication, database, storage, real time. I don't even know, like webhooks, like all these things just built into a platform that I don't have to build. And to your point, that enables us as builders, as developers, to go and build the thing that we care about quicker and easier. And I've definitely seen that in like demos that I've done, but also the Discord bot that I'm working on, and then the website for the Learn, Build, Teach community. And that makes me really excited to be able to move quicker than I would have without those products.
So I just heard a sentence last week where someone said, for learning coding, building your own authentication is probably a good thing, but when you do that, you know that you're not going to do it again. And
for real. Yep, absolutely.
Because I think everyone has once implemented their own authentication and knows the pain of how complex this is going to be. And
Yep, 100%. And I actually, I don't know if you know this, but I worked at Auth0, and it was interesting.
No, I didn't know that.
As a developer advocate, and it was really interesting because part of our role would be to educate people on how authentication works and best practices, etc. Like, not necessarily oftentimes specifically to Auth0, but sometimes just like in the industry as a whole. But then there's this balance of like, well, like, it's kind of good to know, but you don't really need to know it, because you're not going to build that stuff from scratch at the end of the day. Like, you're going to take advantage of a service like Auth0 or Supabase or something to help take care of some of those things for you. So it's an interesting balance of like, yes, it's beneficial to be educated and kind of have an idea of what's going on behind the scenes, but it doesn't really make sense most of the time for you to build all that stuff yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even a next step to that, which is all the low and no code tools, which you can easily integrate. You know, we've some examples for Localizer, for example, which is a tool for translating your application easily. And you know, there are so many tools that you can just plug in to your application, and don't have to build that stuff yourself. I mean, very good examples are, or popular examples are, analytics, or these testimonial sections that you can just put in and have a nice block there.
There's a testimonials.io, I think, from Damon. I've looked at this and it's been a while since I think his name is Damon. But that's like a testimonials as a service type thing where you can enter your information there and then pull in like a widget or something. I forget exactly how it works.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of tools. I personally use Senya for, I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation, but Senja.
Okay.
And probably it works exactly the same. So you basically get a form that you can send to your clients or customers, and then collect feedback, or you can actually insert tweets there, and that will create this, they call it the wall of love, where you have all the testimonials right there. So that's very nice.
Yeah, I just realized that would be a fun like demo to build for a YouTube video. Because it has all the basic things of like a regular web app, like a form and HTTP calls and saving to a database is like basically how the web works. Like it hits all the fundamentals. That's I don't know. Yeah, I just get really excited. I get excited about products in general that help take things, make it easier as developers. And you mentioned this earlier, like in my mind, I forget, I had what I thought was a really cool quote about this a couple of years ago. And I think it was the idea of DevOps is really just the merging of developer experience and something else. But basically just like every tool that gets built from now on, or like the majority of the tools that get built, are just there to enable developers to do stuff quicker, faster, easier than they have in the past. And that's a game changer for people like yourself that are building products. And I get particularly excited about products that are built by individuals, because that's inspiring for me as like wanting to be the person who creates a product at some point and make that a bigger thing. Like I've got years to do whatever, but make that a thing that like I can make side income and have a business and be able to actually write the code for that is a pretty impactful idea.
Yeah, in general, I think you have so many abilities that you don't have as a big company, which is this move forward fast, react on feedback of customers, even or especially in the beginning, when there are not so many customers who say your product is shit, but actually give you helpful insights into what they're doing, and you actually have the ability to move faster in deployment or iterations by using all these tools, and that's very cool.
Absolutely. Two questions from the chat I want to call out for you. One, and I don't know if you know about this or not, but it's a question about the T3 starter. Do you know much about it? And if you do, can you explain what it is and any thoughts on it as a whole?
So it's actually it's a similar project. So as far as I know, it's a CLI or a template to create a basic setup of the application. But as far as I know, it has just like authentication and basic setup for APIs, but no predefined structure and no predefined landing page and so on. And this is basically where Superstarter comes in to play and gives you this ready to use application. I don't know if you've seen the video I released like last week or so, where I actually run the setup process in 12 minutes and have a fully deployed application. And so I don't want to say it's better in any way. I think the T3, what is T3?
T3 stack or create T3 app is the title on the website.
Is a very great project, and it has a very nice stack. So, and that's where I want to go with these pro features when you want to build your stuff on your own. which is I think they built up on Prisma and TRPC.
Yeah, and TRPC is something I hear a lot about, and it's like full stack type safety. So somehow you're defining your inputs and outputs of APIs in TypeScript, so you know on both sides what it is. I've never used it, as you can probably tell by my very vague definition of what it is.
Yeah, but that's what I want to include with the next version. So it's a very nice way. I mean, the cool thing here is when you have a full JavaScript or Node.js based application, you can have this benefit of having everything typed because you're writing everything in the same language, and that's what this builds up and gives you typed APIs. So very cool. You should definitely give it a try.
Yeah. And that's, I think, part of the thing you kind of started to touch on was potentially, I think what you were saying is Superstarter maybe is a little more opinionated in terms of like has more stuff built in.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what we see across the board with different tools and platforms, etc. Is like there is this variance of like how much do people want built in, and that's always going to differ based on person. And I think
that's
the cool thing, yeah, exactly, is there's audiences for all of the above, right? Like we complain about all the different frameworks and things that we have in modern JavaScript, and to a certain point, like we understand, but we also see these new frameworks pop up because they solve very small problems and differences that people are looking for. So I think there's always room for audience with different opinions and perspectives on what a stack should look like.
Yeah.
And they are not necessarily mutually exclusive of each other. I'm excited to kind of see some of the evolution of that, and maybe I'll throw out there like a SvelteKit template could be fun after Vue at some point too. Yeah.
So I know that there are other boilerplates or starter templates for based on Next.js. Also, many coming up currently on Remix. You're a fan of Remix too, right? I've heard that you've.
Yeah, I would say I'm a fan. I had started to go down the path of like investing a lot more time into it, and that was when I was at Planet Scale before I let go. So I kind of stopped on that and pivoted. So I haven't spent as much time with it as I may have let on at that point. But I am a fan of what it is and what I'd gotten to do and what I've seen since.
But still, you would say that Svelte is your go-to guy for daily projects.
Is Remix?
No, Svelte. That's
Svelte. Yeah. So I think like Next.js is definitely up there. Next.js and SvelteKit are the two different ones. Also, depending on like what I'm building, I'm a huge fan of Astro as well. So I ported my personal website to Astro, which I think makes sense. But Next.js is nice because it's been around longer. It's got a huge ecosystem and stuff behind it. SvelteKit, Rich Harris now working at Vercel. Obviously, it's going to have a ton of support. It just went 1.0 officially, so there's going to be a huge future for that as well. So those are probably the two that I would default to if I were building something myself.
Because I mean, that's for me the reason why I stick with React and Next.js, because I think they just have the best ecosystem of everything. They just have the best support for all the popular libraries, like Chakri and Tailwind is just. When you use Tailwind with headless UI, you have Vue and React support. And the thing is, for me, it was like until a year or a year and a half ago that Vue 3 wasn't stable, and Nux is coming to a stable point. Currently, they released, I think, the stable version in November, but not all the packages are ready yet. And so I think that's coming to a closer comparison there, but that's just for me. Currently, React has the best ecosystem, but maybe that changes, and I'm definitely going to try Svelte. So, is it actually all type safe like React, or
so depending on what you mean by type safe? So there's a flag that you can pass when you create a new SvelteKit project. It gives you in the prompt, do you want to use TypeScript?
Yeah.
So it has built-in TypeScript support.
All right, that's what I mean. Because that's one of the few things I like actually about Angular. So I work at work. I work with Angular, and I actually like that everything is type safe, because when you scale up a project, that comes in very handy. And I know a lot of people complain about that TypeScript is annoying and you spend like 3 days on fixing this one type error. But actually, when it comes to scaling an application, I would never write a project without TypeScript anymore.
Yeah. I think more and more people probably agree with you. I think we've gone through lots of pushback with TypeScript initially, but I think the pushback is getting smaller and smaller, and more people have gotten past that initial shock of the extra work that it takes. And it does take extra work and learning, etc. But so many more people now, I think, are on board with you, of including myself, of like, I want and need TypeScript for everything that I do. And Angular is really interesting, because it's not the hottest framework. Like it almost, we look at React, Vue, and SvelteKit and other things, and kind of throw them in this other category separate from Angular, just on Twitter and things, like the way people talk about it. But it's a super solid framework, has lots of benefits to having a lot of stuff built in. And it's kind of funny to me that like Angular really pioneered having TypeScript be a first class citizen in a project.
Definitely.
And now you see React, Next.js, Nuxt, Vue, SvelteKit, all those have support for TypeScript, where Angular was like the first one to really lean into that. So I think there's lots of really good things about Angular, even though it's not talked about or hyped as much, I think, as other frameworks.
Definitely, yeah. But I think the other frameworks, that just move forward so much faster than Angular does with feature development, and also, as I said, the ecosystem around it, and just the fact that you have for React and Vue, basically every new library coming up, it has native support for those two, and that's why I would always go with those. Is that just a question? Is that actually something you notice when you work with SvelteKit, that the ecosystem is not that big? Is that a problem in any way?
So I think my answer to this is probably a little skewed, and I'm going to pull in a question from the chat to relate this back to. And the question from James Foreman kind of makes me laugh. He says, because I've been doing so much SvelteKit, do I consider myself a React developer still? And I bring that up to say, like, I'm only a React developer. I'm doing air quotes for people that are listening to audio, or SvelteKit developer. Like, I only really do very small projects like the bot and the website I've been talking about, or videos, or demos for videos. So like my perspective as a quote unquote developer is very skewed in contrast to a developer who writes production level code every day. So that's not the kind of developer I am anymore. I certainly write a lot of code, but I don't do production level stuff on a regular basis. So I bring that up to say, like, no, I haven't really seen like limitations of the ecosystem with SvelteKit, but I think part of that is the stuff that I do is relatively simple. Like there's not much more I've needed for the stuff I worked on than just having Supabase, because it takes care of so much for me. So I haven't personally realized that, but if you ask somebody who is doing full-time development on React and they're on a team that's considering using SvelteKit, I'm sure that they've come up with certain things that have been gaps, maybe that they just haven't found in the React ecosystem, or the SvelteKit ecosystem. There's a couple of other questions that I think would be great to touch on.
Yeah, sure.
Getting more into other aspects than just the technical part. And a Crunchberry is the username, which I love, is asking about how you came up with pricing for, and I think a Crunchberry mentioned SaaS. So I think you can kind of clarify and make sure I'm correct in this. This is not a SaaS product right now. This is kind of a one-time purchase starter kit. But with it, how did you come up with pricing? Have you sold products in the past? Was there anything that influenced your decision? Is that something you're still figuring out? What are your thoughts on pricing for all that stuff?
Yeah, I think pricing is always one of the hardest parts, and I mean, you're constantly changing pricing, and I've heard so many podcasts about how to price SaaS products, how to price digital products, and I actually started with this at a price of $49 back in August. Since then, I've added a lot of features, and then increased the price to first $99 and now $149, which is a one-time purchase. So for this one-time purchase, you actually get access for 1 year to the repository, with including all the updates, all the new features, and so on. And then, of course, after that time, you can still use all the code and you can use it for unlimited projects. but you just won't get
Yeah,
updates
updated. Yep.
regularly anymore. The thing here is, I think this is really, really hard to price because it just is a matter of the received value from the customer. And it's very funny to compare the different options. So Superstarter is currently at the very low end of the pricing. There are boilerplates that go from like 350 to, I think, 800,000 of I think I just know one very popular one. I don't know actually if the creator of that was on your podcast. I just listened to a podcast recently. I forgot the name. It was it Nextacular or something like that?
That one matter. I don't know. Okay.
But it was also a boilerplate creator who talked about that, and he said he was doing that for like a year or 1.5 years, and he increased it over time, and then did an increase of 800%.
Yeah.
So and now he's selling for like nearly $1,000 or something like that. And of course, he's offering a lot more functionality, but yeah, I think it's very, very hard to price these products. But what I notice is the higher I go with the price, the bigger the value seems to be for the customer. And that's a very funny thing. So you asked that before. This was actually the first product, or is the first product I'm selling as a indie hacker. And so I'm just new to all this also marketing stuff and how to price things reasonably. But for now, I think there is demand for this price, and maybe I might raise it when I get new features to it. But yeah, that's what it currently is.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a tough thing, and I think that's I talked about this earlier. It's so empowering as a developer to have the skills to build anything, but what we don't necessarily have is the marketing background or a sales background. Like, and this is 100% true for me now. Being a full-time content creator is like, I've been creating content for years. That's the easy part, honestly. It's the logistical things. It's the marketing. It's the when I plan for courses this coming year. It's that same. How do I charge it? How do I entice people? How do I make sure I'm communicating the value to have them see that it's worth it? And that's one of the things that has been really cool for me in working with sponsors. And people ask this a lot, is like, how do you gauge price for sponsored content? And part of what we talk a lot about in this programming YouTubers Discord that I'm in is basically kind of like, as long as you have demand, like raise your prices and then see when people start to reject it, and balance. Like, okay, like if I get 10 requests and I send this price to those 10 people and 6 people say yes and 4 people say no, that may be the good ratio, because I can only do so much content. And so if you charge twice as much and take half as many clients, you're still making the same amount of money but less time invested, kind of thing. So it's all a game of trying to figure it out for yourself, of experimenting. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the time that you put in, it's the value, it's the perceived value by the people who are going to consume it that drives the price. And the only thing you can do is try to keep a gauge by getting feedback, by seeing yes or no why people decide to go with a product, of what value they see in the product or what value they see is missing. And that's where you have the opportunity to go and build out those additional features, which sounds like that's a big kind of priority for you this year.
Yeah, definitely. But one question there: how do you go with your courses when doing the price? Because you just mentioned that that you always have trouble with figuring out what to charge. So do you actually adjust the prices, or do you go for one price for the course and then let that sink?
Yeah. So this is actually part of the overall how to launch. Personally, one of my goals this year is to create a template, for maybe lack of a better word, of how do I launch courses? What is it that I create? How do I market it to people? How do I build up newsletters? What kind of emails do I send out? All those things. And so in the past, like I've my one course, my most successful course is actually on Udemy. And so I have basically no control over the pricing. It's like if people have consumed Udemy content, you pay $10 or $15 And if you ever pay more than that, you're getting gypped because they go on sale like every
Yeah,
other day. So lesson for everybody out there. If you're
Yeah.
looking at content on Udemy, wait for it to go on sale. And like there's really mixed feelings on that. For me, for that particular course, it's worked out really, really well. My first paid course that I did off of Udemy, I think I sold for $50 and I made a couple $1,000s. Like it wasn't depending on who you ask, it's all relative. It wasn't a very successful course in a lot of ways, but that was $50 and I got lots of feedback from other creators. This is like way underrated, etc. And I kind of struggle with thinking about I've made good money now for a couple of years, not to bring up in a braggy way, but thinking back to myself 5 years ago, and I still made good money, but just not as much as now, of how much disposable income I had to invest in myself. And I tried to put myself in those shoes to think about, would I have paid $50 for this course 5 years ago when like I didn't have a ton of money to be throwing around for different resources? And so I almost to a detriment, I think, like will probably naturally undervalue my courses from being in that perspective of wanting to help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the things that I have to work on is trying to up the price of courses. So anyway, long story short, I had a course on Udemy, basically had no control over that, but it's done really well. Had a one specific course that I launched on my own that was at $50. Haven't experimented with that other than like giveaways and coupons and stuff for different things. But that's a big goal of mine, is to get a higher level template and understanding and plan for launching a course. And one of the things I would like to do is, let's say I give myself a goal of like, I would like to drive $50,000 in revenue for this course. What you can do is you can backtrack to, all right, if I want to make $50,000 and I sell this at $100 a piece, well, that's 500. Is that right? 500 times 100 is 50,000. I think that's right. Somebody could check math. But you can like backtrack based on a target goal. And it's not like my goal is solely to make money, but if you give yourself an idea of, I would like to make this much, backtrack that from like, if I sold it at this dollar amount, how many customers is that? And then look at like, how many people do you have in a newsletter, right? Like if I think I've got like 6,000 people in my newsletter. And if you go down to like the open rate of like 19% and then the conversion rate on a sale being like less than 1%, that's probably not that close to 500 people that would actually convert, right? So you have to look at like overall audiences and kind of backtrack from there. So that's going to be my plan, is to get an idea of like, how many people do I think I can reach with this course reasonably, and then look at like, based on that, how could I drive a goal? Not that the dollar amount is the all be all, or I don't even know what the phrase is, but like it's a target that I can at least like have as an idea.
That's a funny thing. I was when I posted my goals for the last month, I was asked, how do you set these goals? And I just said, I take the current state and put the goal in a way that I have to do something for it for me to reach
go
it.
to the next,
But I've never done the way that you just described. That you say, okay, I want this amount of money to make for this product to make, and then see how I price it with that. Because and that's also something coming back to the topic of indie hacking, which is for most people, they just get started. They are happy when they make $1 online. Like there are many courses like making your first dollar online, and the most important thing for them is to see that what they are doing actually provides some value to people that they are willing to pay for. So I think in the beginning, it's not that important to have the correct pricing, or there is no correct pricing, or but have to have the most economic pricing, but just so that you can get as many customers as you can get, and iterate on your product, get feedback, and then once you actually have a customer base, then you can go back and find a pricing that actually fits that product well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's tons of different approaches. I think the like backtracking thing was something I had heard on Indie Hackers podcast a couple of years ago or something, especially when you look at potentially trying to go full time. So if you look at like whatever your salary is now, how much is that a month? How many customers would I have to have at this level to get to my existing salary, or maybe I'm
Yeah.
willing to go down to half of that to be able to pursue my dreams of going full time or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But that at least gives you an idea of like, here's what I would have to do to be quote unquote successful by this definition to go full time or to
Yeah.
do whatever it is. And it's helpful if you can attach it to a goal like that. Like I want to buy a new house this year and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna need this amount of money to do it. And here's how I can create a plan to target getting to that point.
Definitely. Yeah. So that's probably a goal for somewhere in the next years to go full time on it.
Yeah.
But when you want to do that, that's a very good way to go. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. So going more into the kind of marketing aspect of this, Shibanji on YouTube asked, as a developer, or commented, as a developer, I suck at marketing or promoting my projects. We probably all agree. Again, like we talked about this earlier, we're developers first, and then we try to do all these things and have to learn all these complementary
Yeah.
skills. But how do you market Superstarter? Like I feel like I've seen it in several different places, and I couldn't tell you why or how originally, but each time I've seen it, I've been like, "Oh, that's really cool and exciting." Not that I've had time to like go hands on because there's never enough time to do anything, but it's been on my
Right.
radar for a couple months at least. Like I don't even remember
Yeah.
when we initially set up this call, but what's your approach to like marketing of specifically this product?
Yeah. So currently it's actually very wild, and I have no concrete marketing strategy. What I try to do is to put my personality behind this project and talk about the problems I solve and
Yep.
how others can benefit. I don't. I tried in the beginning when I started this the first weeks. I was just posting, yeah, here's my cool new product. Want to try it out and stuff like that. And actually just got responses like, "Go away, we don't want that." And then I started to pivot that into a more like, I talk about coding, I talk about design, I talk about Superbase, and that's actually a very nice niche to have, because there's this, you probably know that there's this big hype um, about Superbase in the last 1.5 years.
Yeah, myself
Because
included.
because they have this, they do it very well.
Yep.
They have a lot of great DevRels. They have these super launch weeks where they push new features every day, and this is very cool. And they actually are very supportive about my product. So they retweet a lot of things. They mentioned me in one of the launch weeks about new projects related to Superbase,
Mhm.
and that's a very nice thing to have. But what I see is probably the most effective way to market your product without spamming people is to just talk about the topics that this product is related to,
Mhm.
like
Yep.
talking about Superbase, talking about jQuery I or Tailwind CSS, and then saying, hey, if you are building a SaaS, or that's another topic, building a SaaS,
Yep.
then this might be interesting for you, and you can save a lot of time. And then it's a no-brainer to just check that product out.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I think my experience in DevRel is very helpful for this, because my approach to DevRel has always been authentic, genuine content first,
Yeah.
company second. Like if you don't trust me first, and if I don't provide some value to you first, you're definitely not gonna go out and purchase a product when I say I work for a company. Like I have to already earn that trust and provide value to
Yeah,
people for people to
definitely.
then care when I have something to say. And I see this all the time when I post on social. Like if I just post a YouTube video, hey, I created this video, there's no interaction ever. It's almost useless, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But if you show like a snippet out of the video that's helpful for people, like, hey,
Yeah.
instead of doing this, do this. Now people are like, oh, that's value right there. And then they're maybe curious, like, okay, what is that associated with? Or like, what was that project from? Or like, is this a bigger thing that I could be a part of? And that's going to be, I've kind of gone back to this idea of like building out this course launching template strategy thing for myself, or like solidifying it. And a lot of it is creating these complementary pieces that funnel people down this path.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
if I were to create a course, this is actually one of the things I'm planning. So no one take it or do, I don't care. But thinking about creating a course around SvelteKit, for example, one of the things that's really interesting for people is like best practices around setting up SvelteKit inside of VS Code. And I actually posted about this on Twitter, got some good feedback and stuff. But like if you're interested in doing SvelteKit, here's a free cheat sheet that shows you like here are the extensions that you probably want and some settings that would be helpful and here's why, etc. Like one cheat sheet like that that's free for an email sign up. Now I've got an audience that is not interested yet in a course, but they're interested in SvelteKit as a topic that would be included in the course. And so now you're providing genuine value that's worth it to people, and then funneling people down this path of like here's these other resources. And I think probably the biggest, probably what you're saying and a lot of what I'm saying is like, I think the build in public idea is 100% what marketing is as developers. Like show people the things that you're doing along the way and the tips and tricks and provide value along with them. And then they'll pay more and more attention to the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, so we didn't mention this explicitly, but you said it, and I did mention it at some point. Twitter is a very, very great place for this, and also indie hackers. And I recently got a little bit of traction on Reddit. Haven't used it much before, but those are all great places where you can get into the community of the topic you're or the area you're building in. And then, and that's also what I just wanted to say, this built in public community, especially on Twitter, is so incredibly supportive. You get a lot of great, valuable feedback from other people because they know how painful it is to build a product as a bootstrapper. And so, sharing your journey there and exchanging with other people, just asking, how did you solve this? What do you think about this idea? You can just get so many great ideas there, and then also potentially customers, because people know how you built the product, and know what thoughts went into it, and so they're more likely to actually trust you as a founder.
Yeah. And I think one additional aspect of that is the behind the scenes of how, as a developer, you build a product. So probably a little bit more relevant for SaaS products themselves. So people are building a SaaS product. If you build that in public, you're now providing an immense amount of value for people of just what it's like to actually build a product. Like still same for you, but a little bit different scale maybe of actually having a running SaaS platform. But I'm kind of curious, what's the technology behind the website itself? Like I assume it's like mainly a landing page, so there maybe not like a whole lot of server
it's
interaction. Cool. Okay.
It's a Superstarter stack, so
That's
there
what I
are
expected.
not that many, not that many functionalities included in the landing page or the Superstarter website. But there is like a backend for storing some of the requests for the access token. So the way this works is you actually you do the purchase, then you get an access token, and with this access token you can get or you just get a code that you enter on a redeem page, and then you get access to the repository. So and for that logic, I built the whole thing based on Supabase. So it is the same repository, just with some features hidden.
I love that. That's always like, you always kind of wonder if the product that people are selling, they use themselves, which usually they do. But I feel like that's a good example. And one of the things I don't think specifically touched on is just like the Stripe integration. Is that right?
Yes,
for customers?
Yeah.
And that's huge for selling things. And it's definitely achievable to do on your own, but it just is a lot nicer to not have to do that integration yourself.
So I'm being honest, I had a lot more trouble with it than I thought implementing this feature, because I thought it was just, I create the products here and then show that here. But this whole syncing of the data for showing it on your landing page, and then getting that data back into Stripe to actually create the checkout and manage the subscriptions, was a lot of setup. And the thing is, it's hard to make it easy to actually make it easy for the developer who uses Superstarter to set up.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things. And Stripe is notorious for having great documentation, but it's all in the details, and everything is always more difficult than you expect.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But one thing is that I want to build. I mean, have you ever built usage-based payments with Stripe? Because most SaaS, they have this, and they were back at the pricing topic, the monthly subscription payments. That's what's currently built in with Superstarter. But you see a lot of these AI tools coming up lately, and because of the requests they sent to OpenAI, they have to build you on a usage base, and that's what I also want to have on my roadmap, that I add usage-based payments there. And Stripe offers a good API for that, so you can actually very detailed add usage records. But yeah, that's another great challenge I have.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never done that. Never thought about it specifically from a technical perspective. There's a comment from Haddish: the more you speak and connect to other developers, the more you learn just how valuable sharing your code and thought process is. Pair programming is often growth on steroids. Maybe an even broader example of that is just like being involved in the community takes you so far. Like you're around virtually or in person, like other people who are like-minded or like use different tools that you never heard of. So you get to learn about that. You get to be around people of different experience levels. And I've learned so much just from being around developers that have much more experience than I do. And that's been one of the biggest learning opportunities for myself specifically. There's a question about piracy or any other kind of abuse. So managing access to the GitHub repository, have you had any struggles with piracy there?
Not so far, no. But I know that's one of the biggest problems that might occur, that someone who has access might share his code for free.
Yep.
And that's actually, it's a trust thing.
Yeah.
And it's like with everything, like with movies, people they do piracy on movies and push them for free on the internet. And I mean, it's not illegal to share the code that you've written here based on my project, but as long as it works out fine, and there are always people who are honest and build on that thing.
And there's always people that are not honest, and that's like, to a certain extent, there's maybe only so much you can do, but hopefully there's minimal amounts of that. So
one more thing, actually, I wanted to add to the marketing thing that just came to my mind again, is that was what you also said, writing or talking about that topic by helping people. I always write blog posts about the topic, so like setting up the analytics integration with Split B or something like that. And then you say, you can, of course, just use Superstarter, there it's built in. And that's a very good funnel to get people to your product, and also a good driver for SEO.
Yep. That's actually, that's a great point. That's something I talked to Joel Hooks from Egghead. So they're looking to kind of scale out their investment in bigger courses. I forget, I think they have a separate name for that support that they give, but things like Kinsey Dodds's course, I think we're kind of the pioneers in that. Now they've got several different ones that are in progress. And a lot of what he would talk about is building up that SEO around the topic. So writing the blog posts, bringing people to the domain, and then kind of building up from there. So that's absolutely something that is going to be part of like the template idea that I will have for launching courses this year. So yeah, that's a great point to call out.
This template idea, are you planning to sell this, or is that just for yourself?
Just like it's more just structure for myself to make sure like here as I think about a topic, like here's and launching a course, here's the things I need to be doing along the way, because you can't just work quietly and then launch a course and think people are going to sign up. Like it needs to be something, I think, that people have had the opportunity to come across probably for months, and that could be from individual tweets, it could be from the landing page and blog posts. I've got a big audience on YouTube, so I get to use that to say like the same idea. Here's a tip for blah blah blah. Also, if you want to learn more, here's the course to teach you more. So it's not necessarily a template that I would sell. I haven't thought
I would
about.
buy it.
Yeah, fair enough. In some ways, it's so interesting because I feel like there's so many more people that are much more knowledgeable about that sort of stuff, and I think that's probably a similar mentality that a lot of us have for a lot of different things. So I don't know. I haven't thought about formalizing that. There's absolutely the chance that I might, and maybe that would be a free thing. Maybe it would be a paid thing, or maybe I'm pretty transparent anyway. So if there's specifically any
Yeah,
questions that you ever have, I'm happy to talk about it. But that's a good idea because that definitely is a valuable thing as content creation and courses become more and more of a popular opportunity for people.
absolutely. Yeah. So because I mean, I'm mentioning this because I just started recording the first videos for Superstarter, as I
Cool.
told you
Yeah.
before. That's why I have this microphone here.
Nice.
But there are so many things you actually don't think about before
Hmm.
starting. You know, like how do I
Yep.
record my video?
Yeah.
What do I do with all the things on my screen when I want to show just this little part? And
Hmm.
how do I come up with content? How do I structure the video? And yeah, there are so many things that you probably are just used to
Yep.
and don't even think about anymore.
Yep.
But for people starting, it's just incredibly overwhelming.
Absolutely. As people often ask me, like, how do you come up with ideas for so much content? And I think the one realization that people can have in terms of content creation is everything is content. Every single
Yeah,
every single
yeah,
like line of code that you write, somebody doesn't know some tip or some trick or some fundamental of what you just did. And if you start to analyze the things that you do on a daily basis, shortcuts, tools, tips, tricks, extensions, applications that you use, like if you start to analyze that stuff, content is everywhere. But coming to that realization and understanding, even if it's not valuable for you at this point in your career, that it is valuable for someone at a different stage in their career is kind of a hard mentality to wrap your head around. But once you get to that point, the content creation opportunities are 100% endless. Like it would never end.
yeah. And that again makes building in public so valuable
Hmm.
because you know, you're just sharing. Oh, I just spent 3 hours fixing this one bug here. But that actually might save another one 3 hours,
Yep.
and yeah, that's why actually sharing everything is very valuable for others when you don't even see the value in sharing that.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm glad we get to tie this into a lot of my favorite topics. This has been great. We're a little over the hour, so if you want, we can move into your last section, which is picks and plugs. So a pick is anything that you've enjoyed recently, bought, listened to, watched, read, anything that you want, and then a plug
Yeah,
is something that you want to promote for yourself, or maybe a community that you're a fan of, or something like that.
yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. The pick for me is a book that I just or it's actually I'm listening to it as an audiobook.
Hmm.
It's the latest book from Ray Dalio, which is called Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, and it's just incredibly interesting because what he does in this book is he takes a look at the big nations of the last 600 years and how they evolved economically. And then he projects that to the current things going on in the world. You know, how China and America are just changing positions in the world order. And it's very, a little bit scary, but also very interesting to see how what he predicts for the future and how things might look in a few years.
It's awesome. Really good. And it was kind of, we talked about this beforehand, that I think the copy that you have is in German. So we
Yeah,
had to like figure out the
really,
translation to the English
yeah,
title. But there's a link in there for everybody. We'll have a link in the show notes for everybody to find
yeah.
as well. And then do you have something that you want to plug?
Well, that's the obvious one, I guess. Well, the one thing is just Superstarter as a product. So if you're interested in building a SaaS application based on Supabase and current Next.js or Nuxt.js, so that is coming in the next month, just take a look at superstarter.dev. Or follow me on Twitter, and that would be the next thing. Just I'm open for everyone. Just DM me or tweet to Jonathan _Wilke, and I'm happy to exchange with everyone who's building his own thing and looking forward to seeing the journeys of different bootstrappers and indie hackers.
Yep. Yeah, love that. Again, like we talked about this, but I get so much inspiration from people like yourself and so many other creators and builders and entrepreneurs from just seeing them build stuff. So I don't know. I get lots of inspiration. I imagine other people will
Yes, same
too,
here.
just from following. And I think you set a goal for yourself of Twitter followers. I can't remember what it was, but if anybody that's listening, go and follow Jonathan on Twitter. And I'll do my pick and plug. So we talked before we went live and maybe some after we went live about learning languages. This is something I've talked about a lot on the podcast. And I've been learning French I just crossed 300 days on Duolingo, which is really cool. But I kind of hit a wall on Duolingo where it seems very repetitive, and I needed some more of the like real world-ish type experience. And my in-laws just got me a subscription to Babbel, which is another learning platform. So it has similar do it on your own type lessons, but also has the subscription level has a limited amount of Zoom virtual classes that you can take. So I actually just scheduled my first one for this afternoon, several hours from now. And I'm really, really excited about that, to get some hands-on, and a little nervous, to be honest, but get hands-on experience with an instructor, get feedback, and kind of build on that. So anyway, Babbel is BABBEL.com. And then for my plug, I'll plug the Learn, Build, Teach community. So this is a Discord community. It's a personal philosophy of mine. Been working on the Discord bot and the Learn, Build, Teach website a lot, using Supabase that we talked about earlier, and hoping to add some really cool features and interactions and stuff to the community and bot and stuff this year. So learnbuildteach.com.
Yeah, so James, next week we expect you to do the introduction in French, right?
We'll see. Yeah. So, and it's kind of funny because talking about tech is like a total, like you can learn a bunch of stuff about a language, but then talking about tech is totally a different like vernacular. I did a podcast. I was a guest on a podcast, Cafe con Tech, in Spanish, and it was one of the most challenging things I'd ever done. And it was really difficult because I realized like I don't know any technical terms. Like I can read, I would say fluently, but I have no idea what like words are for technical things, which Matthias, who was the host, mentioned a lot of times, like if you don't know the word, just say it in English, because we probably use that anyway, because a lot of the technical terms started in English.
In English, yeah. Same in German.
Yeah, so that's kind of helpful. But anyway, this has been awesome. Thank you to everybody hanging out and watching and commenting. Thanks everybody for listening on the podcast. If you are on the podcast, please leave a rating and review if you enjoyed it, to help us help other people find the podcast as well. But Jonathan, lastly, thank you for joining. Really excited and enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great to be here.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to call it, everyone. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you later.
Bye.